Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today on another episode of Entrepreneurial Truth. On today's episode, we have Dr. Janelle Hoyland, and we're so excited to have her. She's going to talk about her program, what it is she's doing. Let us know about you, who you are, who you serve, and what you do.
I'm so excited to be with you. Coming from the literal other side, I reside in Texas. So for us, it's turning into fall season. So one of the things for me is that I started my journey when I was very young. So I started my first company, which was retail, at 21. And I built that to 13 locations and over 150 employees. At the same time as leading other entrepreneurs with my consulting business at the same time and raising 3 kids. So
Wow.
it's been a wild ride, to say the least. But it's something, I knew from very early that I was here to do, was be an entrepreneur and, do something that changes industries.
Wow. I love it. I love it. And you transitioned from retail, right? And tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, when when you're running actual retail stores that are what I call brick and mortar stores, your physical presence needs to be there to kind of put out fires and, manage, customer service and, those kind of things. And I was doing my consulting on the side, right? Like kind of part-time. And then it came to a point where I realized it was no longer serving me to be actually present in the retail businesses as much as I was. And my calling was to guide entrepreneurs.
Awesome. And did any other factors play into that? Like, was it trying to balance the retail with kids, or was it just solely what you felt your mission was?
It was solely what I felt like I was called to do. Like it was a very clear, I felt the shift. And this is long before I sold the retail company. And I just felt this internal shift of like, okay, that time period of my life in that way is done.
Wow. And how easy was it to transition?
It was fairly easy. I didn't have like the, oh my God, what's going to happen? At that point, the stores were pretty self-sufficient. I had good people underneath me, so I felt fairly confident in, what was transpiring. But I also knew that, when you listen to those nudges and those feelings about where you need to be and what you need to be doing, that it always, it may be bumpy at first, as you transition, but it's always the right decision.
Oh, I love that. Okay, let me dive a little deeper into that. Okay, for the entrepreneurs that are listening to this that are struggling with, you know what, I've been doing this for so long, but I really feel like I should be doing something else, right? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think, a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, let's say they have a daytime job, because it was similar to me, right? I had a daytime, I call it daytime, or a primary position, right? And sometimes entrepreneurs start working for someone else, but they also have a calling to do something on their own. And I always say, don't quit your day job, because I didn't quit. I didn't resign. I still had that hat that I was wearing. And when you are struggling with that decision, it's the fear, right, of change, the fear of, am I going to be able to meet those requirements? Am I going to be able to do this? And that place of fear is the very thing that you need to use as the fuel, as I call it, to propel you forward into what you're called to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean, like I said, quit your day job and just, let the other one rise up to meet you, is what I say, to meet you where you are at until the other one can replace your income.
Okay, 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 okay. All right. So let us dive into this, right? So you started your business at 21. You grew
Hmm.
to 13 locations. What did that look like? How did that happen?
Well, it happened through the same process. So I was actually working for a competitor in this retail. So it was jewelry, a jewelry business. And I was working for a competitor when I decided, okay, I'm going to start my own store. And I was still working my day job, managing all of their stores. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start this one. I'm going to start building the store, put the cabinets in, do the things, right? I didn't quit
Mm-hmm.
until it was time to let that go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at that point, the store was up and running. I leveraged the first store, which means I used the asset financially of the first store to buy, because I was actually approached by another store that was in operation by an older couple. And they were ready to retire. And so I used the first store as leverage to acquire the second one. And that's how the domino effect happened. I didn't stop moving, but I listened to that inner knowing of, okay, this is the next right step, or this, even though it was fearful, right? Because it's not like I opened the business and I was like making a ton of money. No, I was living above the store with my 9-month old behind the counter in a walker, like it's and making the bills happen daily, right? Like making the income to pay those bills daily. And sometimes that didn't happen. Sometimes it was, figure it out, but it was always movement forward.
I love that you said that, right? So we always talk about the pretty, right? The outcome,
Mhm.
what it looks like after everyone has jumped through every hurdle. Like, I want them to understand that you are going to go through these hurdles and it's okay.
Yes. And I say growth when you're tapping into that place of knowing, right? I've got to make this decision and open this business, or I've got to start this side hustle because I feel called to do it. It's not pretty,
Hmm.
and I always say that, entrepreneurship is really that it's everybody talks, like you said, about the end result, what it looks like, right? It looks great, it looks like so much fun, and the truth is, when you're building, you're in the trenches every day going like, is this going to work, is this going to work, and having those moments of deep pushback, right? Because you're going against the grain, right? And it I always say, entrepreneurship is not for someone who can't self drive, because
Right.
there's no one outside of you that's going, yeah, you could do it. Yeah, yeah, push through that block. You don't know how you're going to pay your employees? Okay, let's make it happen. You don't have a cheerleader. You don't have someone going like, okay, I get it. No, because, and especially if you're doing it with kids and young ones, and you know, it's a those pitfalls. And like, I didn't know anything about retail business in the sense of like the process behind it, right? I had worked for someone else, but doing it on your own, right? There's a whole education that needs to happen. I needed to learn accounting. I needed to learn how to transfer money back and forth between stores. I needed to know how to have cash on hand. I needed to, like, there were so many pieces that I needed to learn, and I had to educate myself on those. I didn't have someone to mentor me to go,
Mm.
okay, this is how it is, right? And then also navigating a 9-month old. And then by the time I was 30 years into that retail business, I had 3 kids, right? And I was pregnant, running the stores, and doing my own stuff on the side. No one really says, like, it's going to look ugly. Sometimes you're going to get up and your hair is a wreck and you haven't slept the night before because you're stressed about how you're going to bring income in. No one talks about that. They don't talk about the loneliness that it feels like sometimes because you don't have anyone that understands where you're at. But the other part of it, no one talks about making aligned decisions towards the end result. They don't talk about that piece, right? Energetic alignment around, okay, is this the right decision for my end result?
Mm-hmm. And
So,
I love that you're here and you're going to talk about that. Let's get into it. Let us get into it. Like,
well,
what can we change and shift?
so the piece that I discovered was, that's why I was talking about when I had the first business, right? And I was working for someone else. That was an aligned decision, right? That was an inner, like, okay, now it's time to quit my job for the retail company that I was working for and step into this full time. Did I have an income? I mean, I had some savings, but I literally sold everything in my house. Like everything, the couches, all of it. I rented out my house in order to support that decision financially. And that's the piece that no one talks about. They don't talk about, right? This is the choices that need to be made. Sacrifice in the sense of, okay, are you willing to go all in? Are you willing to let go of everything that defines you
Mm-hmm.
in order for this vision that has been placed on your heart to become solid in this world? And that requires a aligned decision. Like, I knew it was the right decision to go move above the store. How did I know? I felt it in my body. And I knew that struggling to do both was causing me chaos. This is the difference. So alignment feels like your body settles, even though there's fear. And the wrong decisions feel like chaos in your body. Your nervous system gets triggered and you feel unsafe to make that decision. This is the difference between the two. It's not a logical thing. Like it's not in your brain. That answer is not in your brain. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exist up there. Your brain is only going to give you the things that people tell you. Oh, I wouldn't do that. That's not going to work out well or whatever, because of conversations you've had with other people in the past and not understanding what's right for you. And knowing what's right for you, like I said, is an internal piece that happens when you feel okay. Like in my case, it was time to buy the second company, right? And acquire them and leverage the first one. That brought me, even though there was deep fear, like I had just opened this first store, it was only a year old. Like logically, that didn't make sense. But body wise, the alignment piece of it felt so peaceful and so strong and so right that even though there was fear, it felt right and good to make that decision. And like I said, your brain will logically tell you all the reasons why that doesn't work because it's looking for evidence to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
the body knows the truth. And so when you tune into that space and you make those aligned decisions, the question is, okay, is this aligned? Well, how do you know? What is the feeling? And for each person, it's different. Some people feel it in their gut. Some people feel it in their heart. Some people feel peace. But it's always very clear. It's the fear that clouds it from the mind, right? That says, just stay where you are because that's more comfortable.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So tell me a little bit about what it is that you do in this new practice, right?
Right. So what I do is when I'm working with people that are building businesses, like I've worked with all businesses all across the world, right? So I've worked with restaurant owners, I've worked with real estate brokers, I've worked with real estate investors, I've worked with people that have, horses that run, major Kentucky derbies and all that kind of thing. spas, you name it, right? Across the board, when I work with any entrepreneur, it doesn't matter what the business is. I go in and I look at the business as a whole, and I look at the person who's working with me, and I look at, okay, is this business actually aligned? Meaning, do I see and feel that this is aligned for that person? And if it's not, right, if I don't have that feeling of, okay, it's not aligned, or it is aligned, but it needs to be bigger, whatever the case may be, I look at the bottom line, meaning the money. Are they leaking money anywhere? Do they have any places where they're not showing up? And I see it and I feel it. And then also, are they just in hustle? Like, are they just hustling to get there? Right. Because the other part of it for me that I understood a long time ago is that we have to give back too. So the places that we need to give back to, like charities or funds for people that we feel strongly called to, because the two have to be in place at this point in our entrepreneur journey. For example, I have a woman who owns 3 spas in California. Well, it's a franchise, but the franchise is dissolving. So the business model that she had, the major company, is dissolving and transforming into something else. So then when she hired me, right, what does that new transition look like? So I'll go in and look at, okay, what is this? I asked the business, what does it want to become? And what does she want to become?
Wow.
And it turned out she wants to become an angel investor, but she also wants to sell those companies to her managers on a slow payment cycle, and it transforms into something else. So these are the kind of questions that I ask when I go in and I'm working with an entrepreneur. Is there any blocks to that? Do they have any limitations around what they could be? Like in her case, she didn't think that she could possibly get out of the company dissolving, right? She didn't see that there was another pathway. In that case, it was about selling it to the managers and helping them transform it into a different business. At the same time, she didn't see how she could ever be an angel investor, even though she had never spoke that dream out loud.
Wow.
So I've been given the gift of being able to see the bigger picture, right? Of who you are and what you're here to do, and also what you stand for, because that's equally important.
Oh,
Character.
I love that. I love that you said it. So you've touched on so many amazing things, right? You've talked about giving back, right? Reciprocity, right? So the universe is going to give you exactly what you're giving it, right?
Yes.
However people like to phrase it or best understand it. And mentorship, right? The fact that you dived in and you didn't have someone. How important is it now for you to, when you're speaking to other people about mentorship, like how important what is the importance that you place on that?
It's at this point, I feel like it is the most important thing, because we can no longer be in that space of, so what happens is when you begin your entrepreneurial journey, right, you're expanded. You're like, I can do it, right? I can get there. And then as you go, then the fears creep up, then the mindset creeps up, your energy kind of contracts, and you just get stuck in the daily functioning of a business. And then the dream collapses. And it is vital to the business that you have someone as your support system who can look and see, okay, where do we need to grow and support you in that? Where do we need to maybe let some things go that aren't aligned, right? Because sometimes we start businesses and they're just not aligned. This is a fact, right? And it's not a bad thing. It just means you've outgrown that version, and you need an outside perspective. It is vital to me to be able to, because that's the other part of it. I didn't have that, right? I had, and this is what I've learned. Because I didn't have that assistance and that person to reflect back to me, the mirror of the bigger picture,
Mm-hmm.
I understand the importance and the foundation that that gives you. It is, when you create on that foundation, it is like life source energy from the universe coming in and going, okay, we get you. This is your support in physical form. It is vital.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. A lot of people are now using podcasts, and they're using um, YouTube videos, and whatever it is, whatever means to be able to get information. And I was having a conversation yesterday, and I was saying it's really important for you to seek who it is you feel connected to, who you feel aligned with, aligned to be able to reach out to them and ask them, you know, about possible mentorship. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are in the space of fear, especially when they're new, they're starting their business, they have a million expenses. They get stuck in I can't afford it, but they never reach out. Can you just speak to our audience about that?
Right. So here's the thing, that piece alone, right? Understanding that when you make aligned choices, right? When you tune into that space and you feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to work with this person, or I've got to, and you feel that calling on you. And then you look at your bank account, you're like, yeah, there's no way. But what I've understood and learned and walked through is that when you make those decisions, like there was no way in possible for that first business to be able to fund the second, right? And when you make those decisions, it comes up that the money is there to support it. Once you free yourself from that, it's also a limiting container, right? It keeps you small on purpose, because the fear that I'm not going to be supported in that decision is the same fear of I'm going to start this business and I'm not going to be supported in that. It's the same fear.
Mm-hmm.
And money is an internal thing. Your body has the capacity to hold how much wealth you are here to create. And that's part of what I help people do, is tap into that space of where is that money, whether it's $500, $1,000, $1,000,000, where does it sit in your body, and how do you align with it?
Mm.
Because it is when you go into that place of fear of pulling back because you shrink into, how could I ever be supported in this? How could I ever, have the funds to do that? That is the same thing as stopping you from starting the business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Same energy.
Wow. What are some of your best techniques, or what do you do on a daily basis that you would never let go of?
Oh my goodness. Habits is one of them. And a lot of people think about habits as, not good things, but every morning on repeat, I make my coffee and I sit in the sun. And I just have my moment with God and the universe and just breathe. I also have the daily practice of repeating affirmations to myself in the mirror, to myself. And at the same time, I have meditation that I do every single day. The other part of it is that I allow myself to have creative expression, meaning art projects or writing or making jewelry or dancing or whatever the case may be. Creative expression is one of our biggest assets, not just as women, but for men too, to tap into, to create the expansion for the universe and God to meet you in expansion and not constriction.
Oh, okay. So All right, we're jumping into a lot of things. So let me ask you, okay, we live in like a very sedentary lifestyle. So we're sitting at a computer, we're using AI, we're using all
Mhm.
these different things. Kids aren't really going out and playing, they're sitting and playing video games. Are we blocking our energy and how do we fix it?
Yes, we are. Because one of the things is nature itself is, what gives us life force energy. It's what creates the flow and the rhythm in your body and, all of those things. And when you're disconnected, right, from nature itself, and sometimes during the wintertime, right, it's not always easy to get outside because of weather and whatnot, right? Um, I'm outside, I mean, on a daily basis. I'm having sun hit me. I'm breathing in the air. I'm putting my feet on the earth barefoot. Um, it is one of the things that needs to happen in order for you to feel alignment in your body. If you're disconnected and you're inside, and it doesn't have to be necessarily this big grand thing, like a lot of people think like that these things are huge moments, right? And you're spending hours outside. I have to, just because of the large container that I hold. But in a smaller scale, that looks like, okay, maybe you have more plants in your house, or maybe you disconnect from internet and Wi-Fi for a minute, and put your hand on a tree outside, or like I live by the bay, the ocean, so I'll go sit on a pier and watch the waves kind of crash, or I'll make it a point to go to a river or a lake. Making those conscious decisions to support the connection that you have to nature, because nature doesn't think about growing. It doesn't think about being diverse. It doesn't think about abundance. It is. And when you put yourself in that environment, it aligns you with the truth of who you are.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. I love that. Nature doesn't think about who it is, it just is. I love that. Okay. So if we were to take that and apply it to ourselves and say, in this moment today, I'm just going to be,
Mhm.
what would you recommend us do if you had to walk us through a day of just being?
This is one of my favorite, one of my favorite, favorite questions, because there's a difference in being and doing, right? So the being of you doesn't care about the money. It doesn't care about the status. It doesn't care about the business in a sense, right? It's the you that is 5 or 6 years old and loves life and just loves to be with people and nature and be free, right? And so on a daily basis, there is that place where you just need to be you, whatever that you is in that moment. And sometimes that means that you just sit for an hour, like I was talking about, and have your coffee outside or your tea or whatever, and have that moment just to be you without the doing. Because we live in a society that is about doing. And being is purpose, is sole purpose. Being is sole purpose. The doing is the legacy that you leave.
Oh,
And those are two entirely different things. You cannot have a legacy if you're not being. You
mm,
just can't. Because the being of you could be that you walk into a room and you're a person that connects people. And this is part of your being. Or you're the person that brings laughter to the room because you are a playful spirit and you just enjoy playing, right? And if the business that you've built doesn't feel like playing, then you're not being.
ooh, I like that. Okay, okay.
So that can look like a lot of things. Some people it's dancing, it's music, or it's writing, or being with their family makes them feel closer and in touch with their being. Some people it's watching movies that make them laugh. You know, some people it's going out with guys. You know, and we have the bro moment, right? Um, and some people, some women, it's about dancing and celebrating life and moving, right? That's the being. That's the being part. And some people, you know, I have one of my good friends, and her being is love.
Mhm.
She's the full expression of love, and loves to bring that to everything that she's doing. And that's how she aligns in her business.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, at this point, I would love to ask you if you had to go back and give your younger self some advice today, knowing everything that you know now, what
Hmm.
would that be?
Wow, that's a great one. I would say at, you know, when I was younger and going back, I wouldn't worry so much about how it looks, building the business and doing the things, because that's the part of it. When you move against the grain, as I call it, right, the status quo, you face judgment. And I would tell my younger self, don't worry about what it looks like or trying to make other people happy with that decision. Just move. Because I
Wow.
wanted to bring everyone with me, right? I was like, okay, we're all going to go on the boat. We're going there. And in truth, I faced a lot of judgment, because I mean, think about it. By the time I was in high school, I knew that I was going to lead people.
Mm,
I knew. And I outwardly told my mom asked me, I remember the day she asked me, she says, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I said, I'm going to lead people.
wow.
Matter of fact, plain as day, not knowing what the heck that looked like. And she
Wow.
goes, well, what does that mean? I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there.
I have a definite story that I can relate to that for sure. For sure. I was in a classroom, and they had this really amazing fashion designer walk in, and they're like, oh yeah, and out of the blue they picked on me, and they're like, oh, if you had to work with him, you know, like what would you bring to the table? And immediately I don't know where that came from. I was like, I would never work with him. One day he'd work for me because I feel like I'm here for a bigger purpose. Don't know where that came from. It was definitely left field, but I felt it. You
Mhm.
know, in what capacity, I don't know. And we have a knowing, and
Mhm.
sometimes we definitely play small because maybe it's where we live, or maybe it's what we're conditioned to believe, or maybe it's some sort of conditioning. But I think essentially we all know what we're here for and how we can help and how we're supposed to give.
This
So
is
I
very
love
true. Very true.
that.
I really honestly, and it's true for men too, because I work with a lot of men, and the same story is true. Like, we as women think that, it's just us, right? But no, men have this and even more so now, um in my journey and working with men more heavily, as of late, they definitely have the same thing, that they're being called and asked to be more
Hmm.
and to give back in aligned ways. And when you have that whisper, as I call it, from your soul and from the universe internally, it doesn't ever go away. It just keeps happening.
Agreed. 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 No. Now that you've said what advice you'd give, what tool would you give yourself that you think would be the best tool to help you?
That's a great one. For me, uh because I didn't start the meditation practice that I have now until I was about 25. I would say the meditation, and also the mirror reflection affirmations, um, and creative expression, because I was very, very focused on A to B, meaning, okay, get up. because I had, 3 young kids at the time. It was
Mm-hmm.
very get up and do it, right? There was not a lot of downtime, and especially not when you're running 13 stores and with 3 kids. Um, Taking the downtime and not feeling guilty for it.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. How can our listeners find you?
Well, I'm on all the socials. TikTok is Dr. Janelle Hoyland. I have Instagram, which is Dr. Janelle Hoyland, and then Facebook and YouTube as well. There's plenty of interviews and different things, events, and things that I've done over the years. And then also, I have my website where I have a membership platform that people can join, where I have over, I think at this point, I calculated it was like 150 videos of manifestation and alignment and journal prompts and my own personal meditations that I've created with frequency music to assist in that. And so those are all on my website, which is www.payhip.com/Dr. Janelle Hoyland. And then if you go to my straight website is janellehoyland.com.
Nice. And everyone, I will link it down below. Thank you so much, Dr. Hoyland, for being on our show today. We really appreciate it. It was impactful, insightful. I loved it.
Oh, wait, but there's more. I have a
Ooh,
free gift
love that.
for all your listeners. I have a journal, free download journal that you will ask you insightful questions that you can journal on your own. And that is absolutely free. My gift.
Oh, love that. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I know they will love it too. Thank you
Yes.
again for being here.
Thank you for having me.